and welcome back to the Remembering Project, where we gather the scattered pieces of who we are and invite them home, one breath, one story, one sacred yes at a time. I'm your host, Martina, and if you're listening today, maybe you're somewhere deep in the process of healing, rebuilding, or reclaiming yourself after loss or a major life change. While we live in a culture that often wants to push us to move the needle, let it go, get over it, all those sorts of things, especially when it comes to the difficult things like grief and emotional healing, I want to remind you from the start that no matter what anyone else says, the process of healing is not linear. It's full of twists and turns, ups and downs, sometimes when we least expect them, and that's normal. It's life. It's just how it is. And when you're coming out of an experience that you've lived with for years or that has deeply impacted you, healing doesn't happen overnight. And as much as we would like for it to happen quick and for everything to be neatly wrapped up and done with, it really is more about progress than it is about perfection or reaching a quick end. And so as we sit in the energy of the summer solstice and shining a light on what needs to be seen, today's episode is an invitation to stop to celebrate where you are now, no matter how big or small your progress feels, because sometimes just showing up for yourself is the biggest victory of all, and it's definitely worthwhile to celebrate the small things along the way. You know, after my mom passed away and my time as a caregiver was over, I remember feeling completely lost. I had known that death would come for her as soon as she was diagnosed because there was, and still is, no cure for her condition. She had frontotemporal lobe dementia. You might be familiar with it if you've been following Bruce Willis's story. That's the kind of dementia that he has. And it's really tough. And living with the knowledge that I was going to lose my mom, who had always been, not just my mom, but my closest friend, really hurt, adding to the thousands of other little wounds of impending loss that dementia inflicts upon the family of the afflicted over time. But it didn't really prepare me for losing her, because it's a really different thing to know you're going to lose someone to know it in an intellectual way and to live through it and feel it. So I'm really not sure that anything can prepare us for that kind of loss. I also remember in the days after she passed away feeling like that saying about grief coming in waves was all wrong. To me, it felt more like peace came in islands that were few and far between. Over time, though, those islands have gotten closer. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't still struggle sometimes, even now. There'll be an anniversary, something happens, I see something, I have a memory, and suddenly I feel her loss really profoundly. But I've also realized that healing and rebuilding are more like rivers than straight roads. Sometimes the current flows quickly, other times it slows or even seems to reverse, and sometimes the river feels pretty windy. But every bend, every ripple is part of the journey, and grief really is one of those things. I don't know that we ever completely get over the grief of losing someone, but I do know that coming to terms with that loss is something where the only way out really is through. We have to experience it, we have to feel it, and if we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions, they're going to pop up in other ways. We get sick, we have anxiety, depression, all sorts of things. Grief and loss can manifest themselves in a lot of really difficult ways. And getting through, there's really no one singular roadmap for it. We all have our own ways of grieving and our own timelines, and it's not, there may be common stages of grief, but how we traverse them and when we move forward or drift back all really is an individual thing. And we all come to our grief too with different experiences, different capacities for managing stress. We have different levels of resiliency. We know different tools to help get us through. So it really is a unique kind of thing that we each do in our own way. And there's a variation I once read of an Aesop tale that I want to share that captures this truth that we all have our own unique path and timeline for traversing our feelings and for getting through life in general, right? And it is a story about a tortoise and an eagle, and it reminds me of how patience and persistence through uneven paths lead us to where we need to be, and that everyone's path really is unique to them. And so, once there was a tortoise who wished to fly like an eagle. And the eagle told the tortoise to climb to the top of a mountain, and from there it could try to soar. The tortoise climbed slowly, step by step, and it was a hard journey for him, and finally he reached the summit. But when he tried to fly, he found that he could not. And the eagle flew up and said to him, "You're not made for flight like me, but your strength is in your steady steps and endurance." The tortoise realized that its journey was not to fly, but to walk steadily, trusting its own pace. And the story reminds me that progress looks different for everyone. What matters is not the speed or comparing ourselves to other people and the way they traverse the path. What matters is honoring your own pace and path, no matter how slow or uneven it might feel. And so, you may have experienced this too, if you've been a caregiver in the past, but after my mom passed away, I found myself in a place that I wasn't quite prepared for. The vast, quiet space after caregiving. I was expecting that I was going to feel grief and that I would feel bad after my mom was gone. But I didn't expect to feel so disoriented and so completely devoid of any sense of what do I do now? How do I fill my time? For so long, my days had been filled with purpose and routine in taking care of her, navigating the challenges of dementia, making sure she had her medication, that she ate, that she got to doctor's visits. All of the life things that she couldn't take care of for herself kept me busy, along with just spending time with her and trying to deal with my own anticipatory grief and all of that stuff. And so when that role ended, I just felt kind of empty and lost, like the ground beneath me had shifted, and I didn't know where to stand anymore. Slowly over months, I started to feel a little more like myself again. The chaos quieted, and I began to glimpse what normal might look like. I didn't feel normal, but I at least was starting to have this sense that maybe I could be normal again. And then life threw another heartbreak my way. My close friend Rebecca died. And I was very fortunate to get to spend her last hours on earth with her and her family, which is a really private and intimate moment. And in that moment of sitting vigil with her mom and her sister, who is also a very close friend of mine, as life left my friend Becky's cancer-ravaged body, everything felt raw all over again. Her mom and sister feel like family to me. I've known them forever. My mom knew them. They're people I love, and it was really hard to see them suffering and in pain at losing her. But the thing I didn't expect was that the grief of losing my mom came flooding back with a force that I wasn't ready for. I didn't realize that sitting next to Becky's bed would take me back to sitting next to my mom's bed as she was dying, and that all of these parallels were kind of like living through it all over again. And it was like the cracks I thought were healing in me had suddenly opened wide again, and that I was plunged into this kind of deep ache once more. And, for quite a while afterwards, I was plunged back into a deeper grief and even depression than I had felt for a few months anyway. And those losses felt like waves pulling me under just as I thought I was resurfacing. was a powerful reminder that healing isn't neat or linear, and it's never really done. At least, well, it'll be 5 years in August, and I don't think I'm done yet. And some days I feel like I've taken 2 steps forward, and then other days it feels like I've taken 3 steps back. But I've also learned that progress isn't always visible on the surface. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the soft breaths, the small acts of kindness to self that mark true growth. In those times, I start to celebrate the tiniest signs of life returning. A smile, a creative spark, a peaceful pause, interest in things that I haven't been able to get excited about in a while. And these moments, for me and for you too, are really blooming points. And they're proof that healing does happen, even if slowly, even if unevenly, and even when it doesn't feel like it. And maybe that's something you felt sometimes too, that just when you were starting to feel steady, life shifted again. Right? Because life doesn't stop life and just because we're in crisis or because we're trying to heal or because we need to be treated gently. And sometimes it does feel like just as you're finally catching your breath that the waves come back and the sea starts getting rough again. And if you ever feel that, it can feel really lonely, but you have to know that you're not alone. These moments of grief and tenderness and unexpected depth are part of what makes healing sacred. They remind us that presence matters, that this moment right here where you are matters, that this moment is worth honoring, not because it's perfect and not because it's easy, but because it's yours. And because you only feel grief for things that you truly loved, and to be able to love to that level is a privilege. So let's take a moment to pause together, to notice that you were still here, you were still breathing, you were still becoming. And let's step into this sacred now for a moment. I want to invite you into a brief reflection. You can take this to meditate on, to journal with, to just think about in general. But I want you to ask yourself these questions. Wherever you are on your path, what is one thing, big or small, you can celebrate about your journey today? And if you're a journaler, that is a great question to ask yourself at night in your journal before you go to bed each night. I've gotten in the habit of trying to do that and to think about and capture the good things that happened during the day. And the second question is, what is a moment, feeling, or change you've experienced that shows your progress? Right? And if you keep track of these things, you can read back through them later too and see just how far you've come. And then the last question is, how can you honor the sacred now, the present moment, with kindness and gratitude? Right? When we honor the good things that happen, those beautiful moments, with celebration, we remember them. And the more we remember the good times, the more it gives us hope and energy to keep moving forward. Right? So I hope that you'll take some time to consider these questions. If you feel like it, you can even create kind of a sacred space while you do it and light a candle, breathe deeply, and just take some quiet time to reflect on these questions. And you might even want to say quietly or aloud when you're done, I honor my journey, I celebrate my progress, I'm exactly where I need to be. And remember, you may not be the seed you once were, nor the bloom you long to be, but in this moment, rooted, reaching, there's beauty still in you and in your journey, and in the journey to come. Each breath, each step, each softened gaze, each surrender into self is a sacred sign that healing works in quiet ways and wholeness takes its time. You and I, we know that real healing is not linear. It is messy, sometimes raw. It honors progress over perfection, so we honor where we stand. Thank you for being here and for honoring your own sacred journey. If you feel called, share this podcast with someone who might benefit from it. And share one thing you're celebrating today in the comments or on social media with the hashtag Remembering Journey. I'd love to hear about it and celebrate with you. Remember, presence and self-compassion are among your most powerful tools. I'll see you next time, where we'll continue exploring this beautiful winding path of remembering.